Hi everyone, it's Maddie Brady. We're here to get real about mental health. Stay tuned for some great conversations with some very special guests. Hi everyone, welcome to the Get Real show. We are here with Joe today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his past with drinking, usage, and what life is like in sobriety.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. So I would really love to know really the beginning, what that looked like for you and why you feel like you went down this path.
Like a lot of it's very multifaceted, right? So I think a lot of it stems from escape. I had a pretty difficult childhood. My parents were both alcoholics. They weren't together. I became quickly obsessed with escape from a young age, I think. So I kept thinking of examples. I used to like quite simple examples. I used to like sci-fi as a kid. I used to stare at the planes out of the window and was like fascinated by the planes like flying away. And then I got to 13 and had my first drink, and a lot of it, ironically, was down to my relationship with women. So I could never speak to a girl when I was like, before I was 13, and I went to this under 13s disco. No, sorry, not under 13s, under 18s disco.
Oh my god!
Yeah, sorry,
That's young.
Under 18s disco, where you would just go and like people would be drinking like whatever. Mm-hmm. So we went and we met up with these girls outside, and I remember we had this like bottle of Smirnoff vodka, and I drank it, and I was just like, I can remember the feeling to this day. Like I was just like pure euphoria. Like I was so confident. I was so outgoing. Like I could finally speak to these girls. Like and all of this was really down to like my image and like the validation that I wanted to get from women, right? And then it kind of snowballed from there. Like the feeling of going out and drinking was incredible. Like it's the classic, being the life and soul of the party. Like always doing this stupid shit. Like I think I mentioned before, like running around like with no clothes on or whatever, that kind of stupid shit. But like. You get to 32, not saying that I was doing that, but like similar things like going into crowded bars at this age and like being loud and obnoxious, like it's embarrassing, right? Mm-hmm. So it kind of carried on like that. I was always the ringleader with my friends, doing all the stupid shit, and then I got into drugs. So I think I smoked a cigarette when I was like 16, and then I was like, oh shit, I can't believe it, I'm smoking cigarettes, this is crazy. Like I remember running upstairs to the mirror and like running my hands through my hair going like, I can't believe I'm smoking, like what am I gonna do? And then I started smoking weed, and then I started doing coke. I went to school in Buffalo, actually, in New York. I started doing coke there, and then I mean every other drug known to man after that, really. But then it just, that feeling of like drinking and doing drugs at a younger age where you're the center of attention, everyone thinks you're hilarious, and like you perceive that like you're looking good in front of women. As you get older, it just becomes progressively worse. So it's like it made me like a lot more anxious as I got older and withdrawn and within myself and weird, to be honest, like in hindsight.
Yeah. Do you remember at what age that it started to really turn for you?
Probably when I first got to New York, actually. I was in London. I had my first job in London, my first recruitment job, and I probably it was probably okay then, and then I got to New York and I kind of brought a lot of those old habits over where I felt like, again, I could be center of attention, life and soul of the party, and then you get to New York and you just get absolutely swallowed up. Like it's really, really tough. Like I wasn't earning a lot of money. Like my living situation wasn't great, and it became a means of coping rather than a means of going out to like have a good time. I also joined a new company here where like everyone was a lot older than me, so me running around like being stupid like that at 25 was like wasn't funny. Like I was hanging out with like 35-year-olds and they were like, you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
So it was probably around then, and then it just got progressively worse. Like during my time here in New York has been an incredible experience. I've been here for nearly 9 years now. I've learned so much. I've like grown up as a human being, as like I've grown into an adult. I've gone through some really, really terrible times and suffered a lot through my drink and drug usage. But like I'm here now today, like we were doing a podcast with you on a Sunday. I would never have dreamt of that a year ago. And yeah, I'll be a year sober next month. So
that's amazing. The first year, I've talked about it before, is by far the hardest. So you got through the hardest part, honestly. And then second year is pretty tough too. But then
oh God, don't say that.
No. The first year is the hardest. And then, at least in my experience and from others I've talked to, and then it honestly gets better because you're really rewiring your entire brain during that first year, because everything you thought was cool, you're now thinking, like, what the heck was I doing? But I mean, there's so many parallels in our story. I did the same thing, trying to escape from a very young age, and then I very much struggled to speak to males too when I was younger, and then it really did play a really big role in it, because I would get crippling anxiety going to parties, and I was very outgoing with my small circle and always seeking attention in my small circle. But then when I went to a party where there were older people or males or just anyone I thought was cool or was trying to impress, I would just get crippling anxiety. And then being able to drink and get that liquid confidence completely changed my life. At first, I thought for the better, and then it eventually begins to swallow you up and destroy you. But it works until it doesn't work, because it gives you that confidence, but then you just continue to try to be the center of attention, and you're getting yourself into crazier and crazier situations where it gets harder to be the center of attention. So it definitely can spiral pretty quickly. When you said, like, growing up in a home where both your parents were alcoholics, do you think it ever resonated with yourself that maybe I'm becoming one as well, or it just didn't really click for you?
I first went into rehab 2 years ago, I think it was. Was it around Christmas time? I was doing it all online. It was during COVID, and I just couldn't keep up with it. Like, and in hindsight, I wasn't that committed to doing it either. But they kind of go into this whole like family tree thing. Did you say you did it as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you do the family tree thing?
No, not really.
Well, you have to like map out your family tree, and you're like alcoholic, drug addict, alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that was literally everyone. So obviously that played a huge part. My mum and dad were like never together, like they never lived together or anything like that. Like it was pretty violent, and lots of really horrible situations that were occurring. But my mum didn't drink when we were younger. Like my mum drank like from my 10 to 20s, and she remarried, and he was an alcoholic as well. Like it was just a lot of just drink and drugs like throughout my whole childhood, really. So it, in hindsight, it obviously played a massive part, like in terms of me like leaning into that as a way of escape. But I think that's one of the most beautiful things about recovery, is that like you don't look at it as this like really depressing thing anymore. Like you look at it as those people were going through the same things as we were, right? It's a way of coping with anxiety, of coping with life and discomfort. And like I'm actually like, the more and more I get sober, the more discomfort is like appealing to me. Like doing this, I was actually quite nervous coming here today. I'm sitting here now with you, and I'm like not nervous in the slightest. Right? Cold plunges. Yeah. I would never have gotten a cold plunge 18 months ago. It sounds stupid. It's like little things like that though. Yeah. Like it's just like you just reframe it continuously, and so I have a lot of empathy with what I'm trying to say for my family.
100%. Yeah, I feel like when you get into recovery, you really can see a bird's eye view of everything. Like there's no situation that I feel like I don't feel empathy for. Like sometimes it's almost a detriment because you can make excuses for people, because I just feel like you have such an understanding and compassion for other people and their mistakes, because we're not perfect either, and I've messed up a lot in my life as well. But growing up for me, so it was very different, where my parents barely drank because their parents were such bad alcoholics, both their fathers. So they grew up where it was severe in their home, so then they didn't really. But then I've talked about it before, there wasn't a lot of open communication at all in my house, so they never really said, they just said drinking is bad, don't drink. So obviously you become a teenager and you're trying to rebel. And I definitely was surrounded by a lot of people much older than myself, that then were setting the example of what I thought drinking looked like. And it was not just having 2 or 3 drinks.
It never is it?
So that was kind of my first exposure. Like I was exposed a little bit at high school parties here and there, and then dove right into that. So then it definitely modeled the example of just drinking in excess was normal, which it definitely isn't. But you see it seep into society so much, where drinking in excess is normal in society, where we were talking about it before, where in offices sometimes the drinking culture is extremely heavy, or in jobs and friend groups and activities. How do you feel like that really impacted your journey with alcohol?
Yeah, I feel like I blame, or like throughout my life, I've blamed others for my drinking drugs. Like, I'm always surrounded by people that drink and do drugs, but it's like, you are doing that as well, you know, like, so I was definitely influenced by the people around me, but I was also part of that equation at the same time. So yeah, I have worked in environments that have always been alcohol and drug fueled. Like, I'm trying to think, in every job really that I've had, other than the current one. But again, I'm not that person right now. So you're always in control of what can potentially happen, right? Even if you're in a group of people drinking and doing drugs, like you don't have to do it as well.
Exactly.
And I think I might have used that as an excuse, but yeah, it definitely has played a huge part in it. Yeah, like, especially being here in New York, like all of my friends pretty much every weekend will drink and do drugs. Like that is just what we did and what we do. And I still have a bit of an issue with that, really, in terms of, you know, meeting up with my friends. And I'm obviously, I don't feel uncomfortable around people now that are drinking and doing drugs. I think I've got past that stage, but it does sometimes seem like that's all they really want to do. So it's just trying to find a bit of a balance, really. I don't know. Was it like that for you? Do you still have friends that
yes.
Yeah.
So getting sober really young, that was definitely really difficult for me, that all my friends were still going out, and it was still a huge party culture with everyone. But I definitely, exactly what you're saying, I use the excuse, well, everyone's drinking, everyone's doing this, but I was doing it even further. And even if other people are doing that, it doesn't necessarily make it right. It's like, if all your friends jump off a bridge, are you going to do it? But I was jumping off a higher bridge. And I feel like when I first got sober, the first couple times going out, honestly, the first 20 to 30 times I went out were pretty uncomfortable, but I'm glad I did that in the beginning, because then now it's totally normal. Like, I've seen situations where I feel like people almost feel uncomfortable around me, or like trying to be like too much. I mean, it's very nice that they're doing it, but just feeling a little funky that I'm standing there sober, but it doesn't affect me at all anymore. And I always say, especially what you said about like coming here and being nervous, like I always think the 15-minute rule. So if you can get into a situation that's uncomfortable, the first 15 minutes might be uncomfortable. You might be nervous, you might still have that anxiety, but after 15 minutes it's going to go away.
And those are the most fulfilling as well, right?
Yeah.
You know, like it's not fulfilling drinking and doing drugs. It's not. It leaves you feeling empty.
100%.
Completely empty.
Yeah.
Like, and it's interesting what you said there about like you being the person that always takes it that well, I was going to say a step further, probably like 1,000 steps
Yeah.
further. Like it's true. Like I don't think drinking and drugs is healthy in any form.
Yeah.
However, like there are people that can enjoy it and like don't do anything stupid. Like I always think of I have a friend back in school. I was on a holiday to Ibiza, and I remember it always stuck with me. It was when I first started doing like really hard drugs out in Ibiza, and I remember saying to my friend, I was like, I remember like walking around swigging a bottle of vodka and taking ecstasy like at the same time in the space of about an hour. You know, double dropping, drinking vodka or whatever, like an absolute psycho in hindsight. And he was like, "Why are you like this? Why are you doing this?" And I was like, I am obsessed with the idea of escape. Like I love being that was it. I love being out of control is what I said to him.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? Like, I can't think of anything worse than being out of control.
Yeah.
And like, I love it. I loved it. Like I loved it.
Yeah. I really resonate with, I liked really not feeling, like having the thinking be lifted. Because that's how it felt. Like I would just drink to the point where I just went on autopilot. So it just took away all of the thoughts and all of the anxieties and everything. And that's what I feel like I was seeking, was just to escape myself. And I talked about it a lot before, where I just feel like I didn't know who I was at all, and I was just in a constant state of overthinking and just being critical on myself and all of these thoughts that and not facing like past traumas, just a lot going on in my head at one time. So that was the only time that was lifted. But then you find ways, obviously, in sobriety to have a form of escapism that's healthy. And you're not necessarily, so like I would say running's my escapism, but at the same time it's also my time where I'm reflecting and I'm checking in with myself, so it's a little bit of both. But yeah, that's how I definitely felt around that.
And that's it. If you can channel that excessive tendencies as well into running, like,
yeah,
you know, like that's an amazing thing, right? That's amazing, rather than staying up for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like,
you find things in your time now that you have so much free time. And then, back to like with friends, I feel like a lot of my friends still do drink. My closest friends, honestly, still do drink because they're my day one friends from back home. And it's not weird for me now, especially most of them don't drink in excess, thankfully. But when I see them, it's more of a special occasion now. Like since I moved to New York, I'm not really seeing friends regularly, and I actually like that. I like more alone time, honestly, today, and then having my time with my friends be special moments, rather than like I'm not constantly trying to hang out or just go out every night. Like that's just something that doesn't take priority in my life. So then when I'm doing what I need to do for myself, going for a run and meditating and doing things I actually enjoy, and then I see my friends for a big night out, then it's actually fun. But I've been in situations where I think for a little bit when I was living in Philadelphia, I was pushing myself too much to try to go out to keep the friend groups and keep this persona up that like, because it was fine for me to go out, but it's not something I enjoyed to do all the time. Like multiple nights a week, I just wasn't enjoying it. So now I have a little mix.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good you found a balance. Yeah, I think I went through the same thing. You almost like form a really unhealthy attachment to your friends in from that perspective. Like you spend too much time together.
Yeah.
Like, and especially recently for me, like most of my friends were at work, so I would see the same people every day, and then drink and do drugs with them at the weekend, and then go to work, and then see them again, and repeat the cycle. Like, it was just so unhealthy. So, like you said, like finding that balance now is like I look forward to seeing my friends now. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say I did before. It was like, oh god, here we go again.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it just gets too much. But now I found friends in sobriety as well. So I think that's important too, to have both. So I have friends from Sobriety that I do things with them as well, and then not forget about the people that were there for you throughout the entire process and have been your friend all along. But to be able to have both and have different groups that you may go to for different problems or different events, like maybe going on a hike or doing some on a Saturday, like late afternoon is something more I would tap into my sober friend group for, but really just finding people that enjoy doing the same activities as you, I think, is really important.
Do you feel like those things are like actually fulfilling now as well, though? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I didn't. So you know when people, the classic thing, like I feel like when you drink and do drugs, like, oh, why can't you just go on a hike? Like, why can't you just like read a book? Or like, and you're like, I could do those things, but like it's not as good as like doing a line or like drinking or whatever. But like actually now, like I love going on a hike. Like I love that. I love going to a spa. Like I love doing those. I love meditating. Like I actually really enjoy doing those things again, which is like I feel like I've like transported to an alternate universe. Cause I'm like, how am I sitting here with you? Like how am I like doing all these really positive things and actually enjoying doing it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very grateful.
Definitely. No, that's what I get a natural high from. Like one of my main routes is going around all the different bridges and going through Brooklyn, and then another one is I love going super upper west where you're almost in a different universe. It's nature, like you wouldn't believe you're in New York City. I love just doing that honestly by myself, and I just get a high up there like you wouldn't believe. And I think back where a couple years ago, like what I was seeking was to be in a crowded room, to be standing out, to be seeking attention, and now I'm like talking to myself on a cycle or a run up there, like, oh my gosh, look around, like literally speaking to myself. And that is what I actually enjoy doing today. And it just, when I felt like, at least when you're constantly seeking attention and you're constantly trying to be center of the party, it just, you're never going to get there. So it's a constant state of pushing and pushing and pushing, and there's never any fulfillment that came from it, for me at least. Like, at least I know with running and different activities, I try to push my limits, but at least you get some satisfaction. Like you finish a race and you're satisfied with that. Never once, looking back, was I satisfied with an experience. Did I feel like I actually met this unattainable goal that I was going after?
You run out of peak experiences though, don't you? Like you're constantly seeking these peak experiences through drinking drugs, and you get those, and then all of a sudden, like you're, I don't know, late 20s, 30s or whatever, and you're like, well, there's not really any more of these peak experiences that we perceive to have been peak experiences. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And it's that constant searching for the solution, searching for the answer. And drinking and doing drugs, you become so withdrawn and detached from your body, and so like not in the moment, and you're so unable to enjoy anything that you like. It just spirals and spirals and spirals, and you get to the point where, you know, you're 32 like me now, and it's like, you know, it's not the same. You can't go out and do those things anymore. It's like it's not fulfilling. It's depressing and sad and lonely. Like I just feel like I've become more and more withdrawn and detached rather than before, when it was like, you know, crazy and euphoric. So
yes, yeah, that's really the difference, is when you begin, you think you're connecting with people, and at the end you end up lonelier than ever. And I didn't really learn how to truly connect with people until I was in sobriety. Like that's something I just truly never achieved. I had really good friends, but you just definitely don't get that level of vulnerability and connection until, at least for me, until I was in sobriety, because you're just guarded. You think you're being vulnerable and you think you're making friends, but truly you're very guarded and protecting like a sick secret inside of you.
Yeah, and that's funny actually. It's a classic thing as well, isn't it? It's like amount of addicts in my life that have said to me, and I've thought this as well, that the best friendships and connections are forged through drink and drugs. You know, like 6 a.m, you've all been doing coke for 8 hours, you're having the most crazy insane chats, or you think you are, but you're not. Like, you're just shouting at each other, you're not listening to each other, you're like trying to get your point across. And it's like, it's such an illusion, because like, you know, like you said, at this stage where you're sober and like you actually listen to people and you empathize with people and you understand people's situations, you're actually interested in people. Like, I was never interested in people, and I'm pretty sure they were never interested in me. And in those types of environments, it's just all about what you're taking from each other, right? It's not about actually being there in the moment with each other and enjoying the experience.
Exactly. No, you hit the nail on the head. That I was just thinking, even like it was all about me pushing trying to push myself out into the universe the way I want it to be perceived.
My trauma is worse than yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
But I wasn't actually interested in people, and I always used to think too, I always got along with everybody, but I genuinely liked very few people back then. Like, I just always had negative thoughts and judgments, and really the judgments was just myself projecting insecurities about myself and judging people, and just truly not getting to know people or care about them. And today, like, I genuinely love having deep conversations with people and learning about their past and learning about their stories, and that's nothing, I never experienced that before ever.
Yeah, me neither.
Always about myself. Was it hard for you? So occupationally, you were experiencing some success. Was it hard for you to recognize the issue? Do you feel like sometimes, I feel like when you're getting success and you're making money and you're doing well, that sometimes it's hard to think that I'm actually doing something wrong when you're seeing positive results?
I'm not sure if I ever really thought about the two connected together. Like, to be honest, I think I was just always in denial about it. Like, the amount of times my mum like would ring me on a Sunday and be like, are you alive? Like, is everything okay? And you know, and thank you, Mum. Like, she was always there for me in that respect. And she always said to me, like, she knows that I would come out of it, and thank God I did. But like, I just think I was always in denial about it. Like, I didn't really think too much about it. Like, and you don't listen to the warning signs either. Like, you know, whether it was my mum, whether it was a friend, somebody at work that said, you know, you need to sort this out. I don't think I ever really thought about the two together, to be honest. I just potentially, yeah, like, part of me was like, well, you are doing well. Like, you know, you've got a nice apartment in New York, you've got some money behind you. Like, maybe part of me like thought, yeah, it's okay, but I think I was just in denial about it the whole time. Like, regardless, I just was like, I didn't listen to anyone. And then, you know, the bargaining aspect becomes part of it as well, right? Like, okay, I'm not going to do coke this weekend. I'm not going to do pills. I'm not going to do ketamine, whatever. You know, I'll just have a beer. I won't have 5 gin and tonics or whatever. Yeah. Like, it becomes like that as well. It becomes this like series of bargaining. But like, you know, it's a process and it is a journey. It sounds cliche, but like, it's literally taken me all of this time to get to the point where I'm like, actually, yeah, I do have a problem. Like, I do need to, like, I'm a much better person, and I put out much better energy, and I attract much better people when I don't drink and do drugs. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. So.
No, it does. It does. That's when it genuinely gets sad, though, I feel like, when you're bargaining with yourself. Like, when you're putting so much time and energy into attempting to not drink as much, attempting to only drink and not do cocaine, attempting to not have that cigarette. Like, you're trying so hard and literally fighting yourself just to try to have some drinks, and that's when it gets really, really sad that you're not willing to just give up the alcohol or the drugs to not have to have a literal war going on. I just
literally just thought of a story of when I had a really bad situation like that. Like, me like coming off of drinking drugs was about probably like a 3-year period of bargaining, of going to, I went to rehab twice, but there was this one period right at the beginning where I was like, right, I'm just going to go out and do shrooms. Sorry, it just sounds so weird saying it out loud. Yeah. I'm just going to go out and do shrooms. And then all of a sudden I started drinking. I went to a concert. I went to see Jungle. That was it. I went to see Jungle, and I left because I was just so fucked up. Like shrooms and drinking together is just like, in my opinion, is not a good combination. Some people do it, but for me, I was just like hallucinating. Like I was all over the place. I left the club that we were in. I somehow got to this other place to meet my other friends. I ended up waking up in a hotel lobby at like 7 a.m. not knowing how I got there, and like I hadn't even been. I think I just literally, in hindsight, walked into this lobby and just like laid on the sofa and like no one said anything.
Wow.
But like I had no recollection of how I got there. I woke up like I'd lost my phone. I remember I had to go and like get my phone or like go buy a new phone so I could like contact people. But like to the bargaining thing, like it doesn't work. Like
no.
In that was a perfect example of it. I just thought of it. It was just crazy.
No, it really is crazy because you're never going to win. You always think like, I mean, it's the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what I used to try to do too. Okay, I'll just have 2 drinks. And then you wake up somewhere, you lost your phone, you lost your keys. And it was just a horrific night. And it started as, I'm just going to have a drink. And
I was so anxious though. I remember that day specifically. I was in Long Island City. I was with my friends. We were having a few beers. I started taking the shrooms. And I just remember I'm so anxious. I was so anxious. And like, no wonder it ended the way it did because I was just like so tense and anxious the whole time. So.
Yeah.
Horrible. And like for somebody that suffers from anxiety and like not as bad at all as I used to, like the last thing you want to do is like drink and do drugs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
studied a lot around like the health implications of it and things like that as well, like the release of cortisol and that kind of thing. Like, why me, like the most highly strung, anxious person in the world? Why am I adding all this stuff to my body that's like making me really stressed? Like it doesn't make sense.
That's the thing too. Most people that have issues with anxiety, with depression, with all these pre-existing conditions that are already bad enough as they are then the ones that say, let's add more chemicals that make the depression worse, that make the anxiety worse. And then it's just a cycle that never stops. But I even thought too how you said about the energy that you're putting off. I think that's how, no matter what, you're always putting off the energy that you feel inside subconsciously. You are. So that's, I think, when you're heavily drinking, heavily using, how you end up in friend groups that are doing the same, because that's what you're putting off. And then you make excuses for yourself, no matter what job you're in, no matter where you are in the world, you're going to be able to find friend groups similar to how you're behaving and the energy that you're putting off. So then when you actually start acting a different way is when you're able to find groups that you didn't even know existed because you were too busy doing something else.
Is it the book The Fifth Element? Is it you're the creator of your own destiny? Like you're the painter of the portrait. You're the artist. You're the one that's in the driving seat that creates everything. And it's true. It is. I mean, we're both testament to that. So
100%. Do you feel like since you got sober, you've tried different things? Like you mentioned the ice baths. Like what have you done that you feel like really worked for you?
I think we were talking about it before, weren't we, about like these obsessive tendencies like being a negative thing. I think the series of events that led to this point last summer when I went to Peru and did ayahuasca, and it was all I've become obsessed with like now, like self-help, like learning why I feel the way I do. Like I read a lot of books, I like listen to a lot of podcasts. I love like going to spas. I've just did a transcendental meditation course, which I don't know if have you done it at all?
No.
I'll fill you in afterwards. It's pretty crazy. Like I've been doing it for 5 days, but
so what is it?
So I'm actually not allowed to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know it sounds weird.
Yeah.
But the guy basically said that I'm not able to share it with anyone.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
It's a bit culty. It does sound like a little bit weird, but
okay, I'm signing up after.
So have you done you've done normal meditation before, right?
Yeah.
So it's slightly different. Like you repeat a mantra. Like, that's as far as I can go.
Okay.
You repeat that over and over again.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Well, you're supposed to protect your energy or whatever, but stuff like that. Yeah, like cold plunges. You know, and just like I did therapy for a bit. I found that useful. I personally, I haven't really massively felt the effects of therapy, maybe indirectly, but like, I never felt like it worked for me because I've always been a bit stubborn and obstinate and always felt like I knew all the answers. So when I was being spoken to by a therapist, I was always just like, I know, I've got this bad relationship with my mum. Yeah, I know this is the reason. Like, why am I feeling this way right now?
Yeah.
Like, why am I depressed right now? I'm not depressed and anxious because of something that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm depressed and anxious because like I'm heavily using.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I just like since last summer I've became obsessed with self-help and yeah, anything like that I can do is what I've been replacing drinking drugs with.
That's amazing.
Essentially. So yeah, anything else you can recommend, let me know, and vice versa. I'll tell you all about the transcendental stuff.
Yeah, no, I honestly like just doing all sorts of new things. On Grant's episode, he talked about how some things work until they don't, and I think that's true with our obsessions. Like sometimes if you love something enough, it's never gonna go away. Like for me, my running, but then I've done short stints of, okay, I'm gonna do this sport, I'm gonna do this activity, and I'm obsessed with it for 2 months, and then I'm not. So I've gone through those, but I like it because then you get to try everything.
Yeah.
How are you ever gonna know if it's a long-lasting obsession if you don't at least try it? So yeah, I like doing all different sports are really big for me. I do like meditation. Just honestly walking around, I love. Like not even, I love exercise walking too, but just kind of wandering around is something I really like to do. Just like with no agenda, you know, just popping into stores, all of that. But I think it's really important to first obviously take out the symptom use, like what you were saying, you're depressed right now because you're drinking and using and all of that, but then to go back. And so I always push for therapy. I think everyone should go to therapy, but like I haven't done extensive therapy because I do feel like myself on my own, I definitely explore my childhood, and I'm always constantly asking questions like how you said, oh, you were into sci-fi when you were younger. I always now try to think about what I liked when I was younger, what I was doing, what was happening at home, and I do a lot of self-analyzing and deep dives when I'm exercising, I feel like, for the most part, and I do feel like that is where you find a lot of the answers, and you feel like it doesn't affect you 20 years later, but I feel like in some ways it does, because those are our most formative years where we're learning how to cope and how to think and how to perceive the world. So I feel like sometimes it does stick with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would never disregard that in any way. I think it definitely affects your actions and the way you are, but it's not going to help, you know, is what I'm saying, the drink and the drugs, right?
Yeah,
so it's you need to work on it. I'm the same as you. Like I absolutely love like diving into why, you know, that I am the way I am. I just find the psychology behind all of it, you know, extremely fascinating. Yeah. But the thing is, like, everybody comes from trauma. You know, everyone comes from this really uncomfortable period, whether whatever walk of life you're in, right? And it's I think as a society, I think people are quite hung up on that now, and rather than turning it into a positive. And again, that's not disregarding the way a lot of people feel, because obviously a lot of people do suffer. But it's very important in order to sustain like a really happy life is turning those uncomfortable things into positives and finding a way to do that somehow.
Yes. Yeah, I think going back and acknowledging the past traumas and the feelings and all of that, and feeling your feelings, but then also moving forward. Yeah. Everyone says that alcoholics only talk about the past. Yeah. And it's because you're not moving forward and you're hung up in that victim mentality. So I think it's super important to do that self-work, do the inner work, but then continue to move forward and not let everything that happened in the past cripple you, but instead use that to fuel your fire and keep going.
Definitely.
And even too, I was just thinking, a big one for me. So I like the feel your feelings and then feeling fear and walking into it, doing it anyway.
That sounds like a really good segue into ayahuasca, but sorry.
Yeah, no, let's get into it. I was just thinking like that because I'm trying to think of things that are very rewarding for me. And the most rewarding things in my life today are what I was the most anxious about. Like, I still get that insane anxiety. Like, last week I just did an Ironman race. I was crippled the day before. I was so nervous. And literally during it, again, the 15-minute rule, during it, I was like, this is the best thing in my life. I can't wait. I was 30 miles into the bike and was like, I'm going to do a full one next year. I don't know if I'm going to do, by the end of the race, I don't think I was thinking I'm going to do the full one next year, but I will do another one. But yeah, as soon as I got in the water to swim, it was a beautiful morning. I haven't gotten a chance. I've come from the beach. I haven't gone to the beach a ton this year. So I was swimming like, this is amazing. Like, look at what you're doing, what's in front of you. But beforehand, I was petrified. And that's where I get the most gratification today, is doing something that I'm absolutely petrified of. And I've done the same thing. I'm not a surfer by any means, but I used to garden. I would like push myself and go out on the rescue board in insane waves. And I used to repeat to myself over and over again, feel the fear and face it anyway, because I was petrified. And it's something I'd been afraid of my whole life, even growing up at the beach. But once you get out past that break, it's the best feeling on earth.
Yeah, like what was it again? Tell me the how it was. So it's a run. The
Ironman is.
Yeah.
So it's a 1.2 mile swim, 56-mile bike, and then 13.1 mile run.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's amazing though, isn't it? Like
yeah.
the feeling, like the fulfillment you must have felt must have been incredible.
Yeah, no, it was great. But the day before, I was shaken. So I really feel like, and then you feel like you actually earned it, and that's the difference, is earning the high compared to
the short burst.
Yeah, like, what did you do to earn it? Anyone on the face of the earth can sit here and do a line of cocaine or drink 20 drinks. Like, there's no sacrifice, ability, talent, anything that goes into that other than just acting in the current moment, where the other things you actually have to put time and energy into it to be able to achieve, and you know that you earned that feeling.
Yeah, well that's where the feeling of like the void comes from, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It's the void, because you're not doing something which is giving you this like extended dopamine release, if we want to get all scientific about it. It's that short quick fix, and then that's when you become anxious and you can't deal with just like normal situations because you're used to that quick fix. Mm-hmm. But there's, like, as you said, like there's nothing more fulfilling than really dedicating yourself to something, seeing it through to completion, and then getting the high that way. Is I'd take that over any line of coke, as you said.
Yeah. That is the line. I want to hear about the retreat though. So what was that like?
Oh, where do I begin? So I was in a really, really weird place last year. Like, it got to a point where you should listen to that Rick Rolls podcast. It's the repetition of consequences, and until it finally becomes unbearable. And it was like that for me. Like, I got to a point where I was in the same job. I was repeating the same things over and over again, going out every weekend, doing the same shit. Like, the arrest actually ironically came after the ayahuasca retreat, but I was at my wit's end. I was like, I need to, searching for the answer, for the solution, searching for the peak experience, right? Like, wanting to do something that was just fucking crazy. Like, and in hindsight, again, this was my addictive tendencies, right? Because DMT, ayahuasca is still a highly potent drug, I suppose. They don't call it a drug, they call it a medicine, but I mean, it's like shrooms acid times 1,000. Like, it's it's crazy. Yeah, like, so in hindsight, again, it was tying back into that addictive, pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits mentality. Mm-hmm. But to your point of what you were saying about leaning into discomfort, that's what the whole retreat was about. So I flew to Peru by myself. I said to work, I was like, I can't be here anymore. Like, I can't do this. Like, I just can't repeat this cycle anymore. So instead of like going to a beach and laying on a beach and relaxing for a couple of weeks, I decided to go to the Amazon rainforest. Naturally, yeah, by myself, with a load of it was about 15 people. To describe them, they were a little different to the types of people that I would usually hang out with. Let's just put it like that. One of the people there liked to wipe their face with their husband's urine, as an example, because apparently it's good for the skin and regenerative. So that gives you an idea of the type of people that I was hanging out with.
That's what I was thinking. That's extreme.
Very extreme, yeah. And I didn't actually realise how extreme it was. Like, I wanted to, in hindsight, I wanted to go somewhere to feel this crazy, amazing experience like I hadn't experienced before. Like, to go back to the crazy high thing again, right? Yeah. It turned out to be something completely different. So they tell you, like, it kind of happens for a reason. All of this happens for a reason. And I am a big believer of in that anyway. But my mum actually sent me this retreat. Wow. I was researching through Google, and I was like, I've always been fascinated with the idea of it. And then I couldn't find one that was suitable. And then my mum sent it to me, and it was a 10-day retreat in the Amazon rainforest. You do 5 ceremonies every 2 days. And a ceremony is you go to like a hut in the middle of the rainforest. There's mattresses like all around the hut. It's like in pitch black darkness in the middle of the jungle. There's like a smoke thing coming out in the middle. You go up to the curandero, who's like the tribe leader, and he's like humming to himself and doing all this stuff, right? And doing all these like chants or whatever. And he gives you the goblet. And like you drink the goblet, and you drink, and you have to say, "Thank you." And you have to go in with an intention, right? So they made you like journal all day about like your life. So I was writing about all my childhood and all this stuff, and like we were saying earlier, all this trauma, and like really leaning into it. So I'm going in like in this really deep, reflective state of mind. Sorry. Mm-hmm. You drink the ayahuasca, you go and lay in the bed, and it's difficult to speak about. It's like all hell broke loose. Like it was nuts. Like it's not just hallucination. It is hallucination, but it's a complete distortion of reality. So you don't just see things vibrating. You are in a different place altogether. So like you would look completely different. You would be someone completely different. So your whole perception of reality just completely changes. And again, my addictive tendencies, I had to go up and have 2 cups of ayahuasca, not one. They were like, if you want to come up for a second cup, please come up now. Oh, God. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, come on, let's like I'm on the sesh or something with the boys, you know, let's go and have another cup of ayahuasca. I wasn't really feeling it. You throw up and stuff like that. It's called purging. So you throw up into the bucket. So I had the second cup, and I just completely had no perception of where I was. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I was throwing up. Having these crazy hallucinations, like complete euphoria. Like I'd never experienced it before. I was like so happy, and like everything made sense. And then all of a sudden, nothing made sense, and I was anxious. I was like, can I have some water, please? Can I have some water? Like crying. The lady comes over, gives me some water. I'm like, where's the water? The water's like flying away, like into the sky.
Oh my God.
She's like, what are you talking about? Like, drink the water. So I'm drinking it, and it was pure. I was like, it's just completely dark. It's completely. She was like, yeah, it's nighttime. What are you talking about? But I'd never forget it. She took me out, and God bless her. Like she really helped me. She really saved me. She took me to the river, the Amazon River, right at the edge, and it was amazing. Like the stars in the sky, it was so open, and we looked out, and she just said to me, and it stuck with me forever. She said to me, like, Joe, just slow down. She was like, just be in the moment. And she said, just look at the stars, and like, just be in that moment. And that's what it was. Like, I couldn't be in the moment. Even though obviously I was on this highly potent medicine or whatever, like, I was so consumed by my thoughts, my brain, everything going around, like it was out of control. I was panicking, like it was just, I was thinking one thing, thinking something else, thinking this, and she was just like, just sit there and look at the stars. And like I just couldn't do it, and then I kind of did, and it was fine. And then all of a sudden I was like losing the plot again. Anyway, I did that for 10 days.
10 days?
No, I did it 5 times over 10 days. And again,
jeez.
the whole concept, like you're saying, that in terms of discomfort is embracing that discomfort. It's a very, very radical form of that, of course. And I remember speaking to the leader on the second ceremony, and I was like, "Can't you just go to therapy?" And he was like, "Hey man, like therapy, you don't get this shit in therapy, man." I remember his voice.
I'm sure.
I remember his voice. He's just this really slow voice like this.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. Like, the whole thing was just so. I was so proud of myself because. Even though I was using a substance, which in hindsight there was an element of that to it, I really embraced the discomfort. I was scared to be in that room by myself in the middle of the jungle. You know, I was scared by the thoughts, the hallucinations, the people, the being in the jungle, the animals. Like you know, I was scared of everything. And then like I think it was the 7th or 8th day, and I was just like. I had never felt euphoria like it. I was so purged, they call it. You get rid of all the negative emotions, feelings, whatever. And to your point, I left after that. I left the jungle, and I was just like, wow, I cannot believe I did that. I was so proud of myself, and it really started the series of events which led me to now this obsession with changing and rewiring all these parts of my body that were dysfunctional.
That's amazing, though. That was the outcome, the actual.
Well, ironically,
I
got arrested after that, but still, like it started the chain of events.
It was a rung on the ladder to recovery, but yeah, all of that sounds amazing except the ayahuasca part, like the jungle. I like, but that's crazy.
Oh yeah, no. Look, Maddie, I wouldn't do it again. Like I can sit behind this pretense of I was trying to change my life and all that. And this is no disrespect for the people in Peru that believe in this. It's like an ancient tradition, right? Yeah. And the people that I went there with actually are trying to argue for its usage in the NHS in England. Like it's they want to bring it into like medicine to be used for depression and PTSD and stuff like that. So no disrespect to the way they feel about it, of course. But I in hindsight, I didn't go in there with that intention. I went in there with I want to have a crazy experience. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, it does sound neat though, and I think like. Different parts of the world cope in different ways, so I think it sounds like a really neat experience, and at least you got to do it.
I'd never do it again though. Like if you're thinking of doing it,
I mean, I couldn't do it. I can't really. I literally have vitamins and that's it. So I think ayahuasca retreat might be pushing that line.
It's big amongst celebrities and stuff though, isn't it?
Yeah,
and,
I can see like Gwyneth Paltrow doing it. Like
what's her name? Oh, it's gonna annoy me now. I can't remember her name. We'll get back to it. Yeah.
I can see that, but I've always wanted to go on retreats like that. So that's really maybe not ayahuasca, but just mental health retreats in general. And I always see them pop up on the Instagram where it's like different therapies and going here and there. So that's definitely on my list of things I would love to do. So.
You can definitely still do it, right? Yeah. Like, but without the ayahuasca, obviously. Like, all the other parts were great. We did a lot of therapy, a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work. Like, it sounds stupid, but I didn't even know about breath work until last year. Like, in terms of, like, if I get really anxious,
that's huge.
I can breathe, like, close my eyes and breathe from 10 to 1 and feel better. I didn't know that. Genuinely, I didn't know that until last year. Yeah. So, like, I learned a lot of good stuff. It was just, obviously, the ayahuasca itself was too much.
I'm huge on the breathing. I always do the like 2 short in and then exhale, and you do that like 10 times in a row, and no matter how anxious you are, you immediately feel better. I don't know like the science behind it, but it releases something in your brain.
Calms down the nervous system.
Calms you down. But no, that's amazing that you got to have that experience. Very neat. Do you feel like, so the actual rehabs you went to, what were they like for you, and do you feel like they were impactful at all?
Yeah, 100%. So I tried rehab the first time. As I said, it was during COVID, so it must have been 2021. Yeah, it was the year before. It was 2021 Christmas. I didn't see it through. And then the nadir, as Rick Rolls calls it, the day of reckoning, was when I did get arrested in October, and I ended up in a police cell for 2 days. I was with they actually put me in the murderers section for some reason. Like, I have no idea how. Like, I was with some crazy fucking dudes, like 10 of us in a holding cell for like 24 hours. Like,
Wow.
It was terrible. So like, I eventually left. I'm laughing uncomfortably. This is not funny in the slightest, but
Yeah.
I eventually left after that. And this wasn't the first time I've been arrested. I've been arrested like multiple times now, like too many times. And it finally got to that point where it was unbearable. Mm-hmm. And I took some time off work. They gave me some time off, and I didn't have any other excuse like not to go to rehab, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I had to do it. I gave them a call. I had all this free time on my hands. I had about 2-3 months. So I was like, right, I need to go and do it. And I could go in person now, obviously, because it's post-COVID. So I went, and honestly, it was the most incredible experience in hindsight I've ever been through it. It was life-changing. Like, the people that you're with, first of all, like, they're the coolest people that you've met. Mm-hmm. They're not the people at the bars that are like, let's get an Instagram, let's get a picture. They're not those people. They're like artists and actors and therapists and like all these like really like very deep people, very deep emotional people. And it just struck me that, first of all, that I was like, wow, I've never met such interesting people in my life. Mm-hmm. But also you start to hear other people's stories, and you're like, oh wow, actually, yeah, my story is actually not really that bad, in hindsight. Mm-hmm. Not in hindsight, in comparison. Yeah. You're like, wow, I'm not that important. None of us are. Like, we're all just completely consumed by our own egos. And I mean, I've heard some really fucked up stories in rehab, like, some really bad ones, and you just kind of think to yourself, you're like, oh wow, like, I'm not actually like that fucked up as I thought I was. Yeah. And I learned so much. You learn a lot about the science behind it. I was going in every day. It's your classic, hello, I'm Joe and I'm an alcoholic. It was that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This is my 30th day, whatever. And everyone was like, yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it sounds crazy, but like it's not when you're in it. I was so like, right, this is it now. Mm-hmm. And it was just an amazing experience. Shout out to Hazel and Betty Ford. Yeah. Because it was incredible. Like, I can't thank them enough for the work we did together.
That's great. That's the one thing that I honestly love the most, is that feeling of detaching yourself from your ego and just realizing you're not that important. Yeah. And it actually releases anxiety. And like, it sounds like, I mean, I know today everyone's about like hyping each other up and all of that, and that's great, but it's actually relieving to think, I'm not that important. Nothing's that important at the end of the day. And it actually really helps. Like, I love being in New York City because I'm nobody here. But that's amazing. Like, you're nobody, but in the same stroke, you can be whoever you want to be. So you can reinvent yourself. You don't have people being like, oh, well, that's not like you, or like, you can do whatever you want here and nobody cares. Yeah. Like, nobody's concerned with what anyone else is doing. And I think that is amazing. And I really like too, being in recovery, in rehab, and then also being in a program and all of that, you meet so many different people from different walks of life and realize like you aren't that different from people. And I think it's so important for people to get outside of their comfortable circles and the people they grew up with, and experience listening and formulating relationships and connections with people that are different than them, because you realize like we might have had very different upbringings and very different problems and even addictions, but at the end of the day, we're all still struggling with similar things, and we're not that different from each other.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've actually noticed as well, like, having been that person that wants to be center of attention all the time and the ringleader in those situations, like, even in these sober communities, like, I'm still that person that people like being around and enjoy being around, enjoy speaking with, like, you know, look forward to seeing, you know, like, not being big-headed, but it's like all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm being validated without the drinking drugs now as well, with people that I've never met before. It just becomes so much more fulfilling.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have these traits that can be extremely negative or extremely positive. Like, we have the obsessiveness,
Highs and lows.
We have the highs and lows, we have the need to try to do a lot and produce a lot and get some sort of attention, and you can either use that to be completely self-serving, or you can channel that and use it to help other people. And I think at the end of the day, that really is the difference in whether you're using those traits negatively or positively.
Definitely.
So I think that's good. What do you feel like in sobriety is the best part? Like, what is something that really shocked you about making it to the other side?
Oof. It's hard to communicate articulate without almost like sounding quite cliche sometimes, because you hear all this stuff beforehand and you're like, I'm sick and tired of people saying, like, read a book or like that kind of thing. But genuinely, it is the enjoyment of small things. It's the enjoyment of small things. It's like you said, being able to walk outside and be like, wow, it's an amazing day today. And that's work in progress, obviously, because there's still that little part of me that wants that peak experience, and then maybe that'll always be there. And it's about trying to manage that and control that, but not control that, so we don't have to control everything. But it is the enjoyment of small things. Yeah, 100%. It for me, it's being less reactive as well. As I said, I am quite anxious, and I feel like sometimes I can get this, like, pressure in my chest when I get anxious, like, and I feel like that's kind of gone a little bit. I'm less reactive if I'm triggered or something upsets me, or I don't just jump straight away. I think I'm a lot more. I can think about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to react first. So definitely that. And also the like, I've been saying this at work, right? You might have overheard me a few times. There's no such thing as coincidences. I've been saying, I know it's like sound like a sarcastic arsehole, but like, genuinely, it is true. It is true. The stuff that has happened to me since I've got sober, you couldn't, like, have imagined it before.
Yeah.
I've been I've been planning a podcast for like 6 months. I've been, like, writing it, you know, just getting some, like, bare bones together, basically. And here I am now sat with you. It's if you put out the energies and you put out the good energies, like, good things come to you, like, 100%. I firmly believe that. Like, it's just so true. And that would definitely be the third thing for me is that if you're putting out all that negative energy, only negative things are going to happen. Like, these like, my job now is so much better. Like, my relationship with my girlfriend is amazing. Like, just my friendships are better. Like, just everything is just much more fulfilling, empowering, validating. You know, all those things. It's just like, life it genuinely is truly beautiful if you want it to be, kind of. And it sounds a bit hard in that way, but do you understand what I mean?
Yes, definitely. I think that's one thing I still will sometimes stress about the future, like, try to be micro planning things, but things just happen. Like,
oh god, sorry, yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm a lot more satisfied in my work environment now and where I am living and all of that. And, like, I was getting, like, as in our line of work, you get messages all the time, and I just randomly, I never even look at them. I randomly looked at one, listened to the founder on a podcast on a run that night, and was like, I'm going to work there, and got the job by the end of the week. Right. So, and those things, like, aren't coincidences, and immediately it is so much better, and I'm just so much happier. And I don't think that is some random coincidence. Like, these things happen when you are opening yourself up and putting yourself out there and are ready to receive it.
It's the control element as well, like you said. So that's what rung the bell within me. When I was in rehab, there was this guy. He was like really severely, like I think he was bipolar. He had OCD. Like he was just really, really struggling, like mentally. But he was the same. I used to have like little notes on my phone, and it wasn't just planning the day. It wasn't just planning the month. It was planning like 10 years time.
Yeah.
I'm going to have this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Like literally changing it every day like a psycho. And the guy in rehab, it's again something that stuck with me. He was like, fuck the map. He was like, fuck the map. He called that part, that like trying to plan everything out the map. And he was like, fuck the map. And I don't do that anymore. And I think that is a lot of people suffer with that, is like trying to control the outcomes, like trying to control every next part of your life. Like, I'm going to be here by this point, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to be a singer, I'm going to do this, whatever. That is not how you become an actor or a singer. You do it, in my opinion, by putting out those good energies and those coincidences and all these amazing things that happen. That's how you get to where you want to be. It's not forcing the issue and trying to control the outcome.
Yeah. No.
So that's what I thought.
Yeah. No, that's completely true. And that's something that I still try to slow myself down. And I try to think of the analogy of like being in the middle of a race and enjoying that, instead of just constantly trying to get to the finish line, because there is no finish line in life until it's done.
Yeah.
So there's no point actually trying to stress when we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Something could happen that completely derails it, and it's easier to just go with the flow rather than have a stringent plan in our mind that we have just no idea what the future holds.
Yeah, you don't watch a film to get to the end, do you?
Yeah.
You watch the whole thing.
Exactly.
One of my friends told me that one.
I love that. What do you feel like, going off of that, actually, what do you feel like has been the hardest part of sobriety for you?
The first 6 months, I think, were horrible. Yeah. I couldn't be out with people. I think that went away quite quickly, actually. But definitely initially it was hard just to be around people drinking and doing drugs. I think that's better now. I smoked a bit of weed at the beginning. I've stopped smoking weed within the last month, and the clarity, by the way, is just is insane. California sober, like whatever that is.
Yeah.
So it was that I was like smoking a little bit at the beginning, and probably too much at the beginning, and trying to get the same kind of, like, I suppose, seeking that little buzz still. So there was that. It was trying to adjust just like normal life. Definitely that part, and just enjoying normality. Yeah. Normality, whatever that means. Trying to think what else was hard. What was hard for you?
I feel like feeling the emotions you were trying to avoid.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So that, and then also I think trying to force myself into situations that no longer served me, and feeling that sense of being alone. So going to the same type of party that I went to wasted, and then realizing like certain people didn't serve me anymore, certain places didn't serve me anymore, and that was really difficult for me because one of my biggest issues is letting go of things, and I didn't want to let those things go because they were important to me at one time in my life and no longer served me, and having to acknowledge that some things you just have to let go. Yeah,
I that was the same for me. The flurry of emotions, positive and negative. Like, I remember, I think it must have been about 3 or 4 months in. When I was in England, I remember I was staying with my mum. And I just had a flurry of I was thinking a million different things, positive and negative, all at the same time. And I was like, wow, like I've spent all this time like really keeping all those emotions in. Yeah. So like to your point, yeah, it was exactly that. It was just like, wow, like I'm feeling so much. and that was difficult at first. But I feel like now, like I don't as much. And in these, I was saying about those meditation course I did. Like, I felt like the people I was with were thinking like quite a lot. I wasn't. I was just like very, very clear. And I mean, that's only going to get better. Like, you know, it's only been nearly, as I said, nearly a year. So like, I can't imagine what 2, 3, 4, 5 years are going to be like. I'm probably going to be like floating in a cloud somewhere.
Yeah, it's limitless.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing too. I feel like I truly believe that there's no limits today, and that voice...
Oh, you're gonna love transcendental meditation. So
I'm signing up. But yeah, I just feel like there's no limits because I used to always think there's always that voice inside of your head. You can't do an Ironman. You can't fly to Peru and do. There's all these rules, and the rules are completely fake. I truly believe there's no limits, and if someone else on this earth has done something, there's no reason why you can't.
Yeah.
That's why I like to think if someone in history has done something, there's no reason you can't. I mean, there's obviously physical limitations, but as far as most things...
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to see me run a marathon, to be honest, but I might do.
You can, though.
I can do.
You can.
I think it's a bit inhumane, to be honest. 26 miles, that's a lot.
Yeah, I think you can do it.
No.
I think I got to connect you to some people. And they're going to make you.
Honestly, it's so funny. Like, I've always said that to myself, like, I would never run a marathon. That would be me.
Now you have to.
Now I'm at this stage. I'm like, yeah, maybe I would.
Yeah, next year, start training. What would you say to someone that's toying with the idea of becoming sober and doesn't know if they should or if they're bad enough or doesn't think they can?
I think don't judge yourself. You know, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, there is if I can get to this stage now, like, genuinely anyone can, like, and everyone, it takes time. There's not a solution like immediately, but the outcome is just so much more beautiful than you could ever imagine. Like, that's genuinely, I would, like, you'll change everything about your life and everything will become so much better. But I think the key is just like not giving up, really. That's the key. Is like, it might take you a long time, you know, to get to where you want to be, but just don't give up, because
exactly.
there is an outcome.
Don't quit right before the miracle.
Exactly. There is a miracle.
Say.
Yeah, not an outcome. There's a miracle. That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and getting real.
Thank you. Thanks, Maddie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in and getting real with us. Podcasts will be posted every other Wednesday on Spotify and YouTube. Please reach out via DM if you want to chat.